right, here we are.
Welcome, Connie and Jeremy Sinnott from Barrie. We know you. We've known these guys forever, but Connie and Jeremy are the senior pastors of Catch the Fire Barrie.
How many years have we known you guys?
Since 88.
88.
That's a long time ago.
A long time ago, 1988. Yeah. Yes. And you were a principal of a school and I was one of your teachers.
That's right.
That's right. Yes.
Which she got called to the office, I heard, but we won't tell that story. She got called.
Don't tell that story. No.
Don't tell that story. No.
But it is a good story if someone really wants to know.
So, but yeah, I was one of the teachers and not at first, but because I actually met you in a tiny little church in Toronto.
It was actually Etobicoke, wasn't it?
It was Etobicoke, but it was
Silverthorne
School. Yes.
Yep.
And I went to this tiny little church back then called the Toronto Vineyard, and there was only about 50 of us. So let's go way, way back to 1988. Did you ever expect this amazing move of God to come out of this small church we were both a part of? And
yeah,
I'd love to hear more about it.
Absolutely not. We had no idea.
No.
We had heard about past revivals and how wonderful they were. We never thought we would be involved in anything like that.
Yeah.
When John Arnott began the church in Toronto, he was still pastoring in Stratford. So he would do his church in the morning and then drive to Toronto for the afternoon session. And I loved the way he just ran church. It was just come sit in my living room atmosphere, much like John Wimber. And the fact that they were just casual, the clothing was casual, the worship was just simple, a guitar, acoustic guitar. It was just lovely. It's just lovely.
Yeah. We actually met John and Carol first by going to a cell group at his mother's house in 1987.
Oh, wow.
The first cell group. And then he wanted to have another group that was out in the east end of Toronto as well. So ended up the second cell group was at our house in 87 before we actually started the church in May of 1988.
Yeah.
Wow. Now I showed up, I believe, in August 1988 at that beautiful Thornhill Church. And I hadn't even met Bruce yet.
I wasn't even on the scene.
You weren't even in the picture yet.
Yeah.
Yes. And so fast forward to 1994 when it all broke out. And at that point, we were called the Toronto Airport Christian Fellowship, right? No, we were called the Airport Vineyard.
Airport Vineyard still, that's correct.
Because we were near the airport. Yes.
No, we were almost on the runway, wasn't it? On Dixon Road. It was like.
Yes, we sometimes had to stop the service because an airplane was landing over.
That's right.
Got real loud.
Yeah, and so we were, we were married for 4 years at that point, almost 4 years.
Yeah.
We had little Zeke with us. He was 1 year old. So tell us, how did it all start in 1994? You guys were there. You were one of the main leaders.
Yeah, you were doing worship. Yeah. You were doing worship the night we showed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Randy Clark was invited by John to just do a weekend conference, and we started on a Thursday night. And Randy was a little reluctant. He said he didn't have many messages, yada yada yada. But he came, brought a worship leader and a few of his team with him. We had the worship, and it was. I guess it was okay. I was leading it. And we had our normal introductions and that sort of thing, and then invited Randy up, and he gave a very nice sermon, message. It was nothing spectacular or anything like that, but it was when we went into ministry time at the end. And Connie, you may want to share a bit of this.
Yes, I will. He was mostly just sharing his testimony about when he went to Rodney Howard-Browne's conferences and kept going up for prayer for an impartation.
Oh yeah.
And so a few things that started in his church, actually, we heard about some people shaking and falling down and some things happening. And John said, I'd really like to see that in a vineyard package, not some other charismatic or Pentecostal package. So he invited Randy up because he was part of a vineyard as well. Yeah. And so when Randy spoke very simply, like Jeremy said, but their team came and said, anybody want to come up and receive some prayer? And so what I noticed right away was when they went to pray for people, they stuck with them. Like they expected something to happen. They really did. And they were praying for me because I was up near the front. So they started to pray for me and prayed and prayed. And I remember for myself, it was like, I felt this slight tingling on my lips. And I thought, okay, I could tell I had a choice right then and there to believe that God was doing something or just kind of toss it off.
Yeah.
No, I'll have simple childlike faith. And God, if this is you, I just go ahead, increase it, do whatever you want. And within a few minutes, my whole mouth was frozen solid, just like dental freezing.
Wow.
I couldn't talk.
Wow.
In fact, I had to put my hand up just to check, make sure I wasn't drooling or something. You know? And John thought it was hilarious, John Arnott. So he brought a mic over and said, Connie, say something.
What a nice guy.
That sounds like John.
It does. He thought it was so funny. And I know just that week before before it all happened, John had said to us, I just sensed something really amazing is going to happen. They had this amazing prophetic word from Mark DuPont that God was going to pour out on us just like Niagara Falls. And we thought even if a tenth of what he spoke about happened, it would have been amazing. But so there was this anticipation. John just really felt this. And I said, well, yeah, but I've heard that there's falling down and shaking and everything. I don't want to fall down and shake. Like, I'm not interested, you know. But I said to him at that time, the week before, if God does something, I want him to do something deep in my heart, to make a real impact on my heart. And so that night when my mouth was freezing, I'm frustrated, thinking, God, I said I wanted something like deep in my heart. I don't want something like this, you know. But I thought, okay, but God, if you want to do this, it's up to you. Some people said, oh, I think God's trying to get you to be quiet to listen to him. And I said, I'm a very quiet person, really. I don't think that's an issue. And someone else said, I think he's empowering you to speak and prophesy. And I like that a lot better, but somehow I didn't think that's what it was. And it took me at least a week for, God to remind me, you wanted something that was so strong, you knew it was me, that it wasn't just the nice little tingling that thought maybe, the warm fuzzies, but you wanted to, you needed to know this was really me. Because, we were associate pastors, second in charge with John and Carol. And to see all this stuff that started to break out and happen, we needed to know this really was God.
Yeah.
We loved our people and didn't want anything said, taught them, you don't say, anything unless it's really real, really true. And so we needed it. And every night, God's thumbprint was on something so strongly, we couldn't walk away, could we?
But it was like an explosion. As they continued to pray for people, everyone that they prayed for was just manifesting, crying, laughing, falling,
shaking.
Shaking. It was, it was amazing. And we had seen a little bit of that over the years, but we had never seen virtually everybody that was just being affected by this. It was the wildest thing I have ever seen in my life.
It was scary.
Actually, it was. It was scary.
When we're in charge of this place, it's like, it's scary.
And
so we
how late did it go? Like this was going on like late in the night. Like how did you deal with it?
It went well after midnight.
Wow.
And we went
sometimes
home.
till 4 a.m.
Well, I'll get
wow.
We thought, okay, well, that was great. We got another meeting tomorrow night, Friday night. We'll see what happens. Well, it was even more explosive.
Yeah.
And so then we went to Saturday, and then the Sunday morning, the Sunday evening, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And we just, I'm glad we stayed long enough to see the fruit of it, because that was the key thing. We wanted to know what was the fruit of all this insane stuff in our minds, insane stuff that was happening. But we saw marriages being healed. We saw people's salvations just increasing like we'd never seen before. People being healed at various levels. It was just so
falling in
good.
love with Jesus like crazy, reading their Bibles like never before. All the fruit of it was amazing. Like even within that next week, John's calling to the other pastors in town saying, can you come and, evaluate this with us? Let's have a luncheon on Wednesday morning. Let's talk about it. What does it say in scriptures about this? We've got to know, is this really God? And, at first about 40 pastors showed up. Well, we've been trying for a few years to get pastors to work together just to have a worship night. And we could only get 2 pastors together. That was it. But all of a sudden, everybody wanted to come out and see. And from that very first pastors meeting, the Holy Spirit fell. Some of them were just, broke down before each other and just said, I really need some prayer. Would you pray for me? I'm having trouble with my marriage or this or that. And they just started praying, and God just really showed up and did amazing things. And it started a whole pastors network right within a week.
That is so amazing. Now, I know when it first broke out, Bruce and I, we were helping with a church plant in downtown Toronto.
Right.
Yeah.
But then we heard about this,
Yeah.
what happened at the conference. So we went, I think as soon as it was over, we went, bringing our 1-year-old in his carrier, like rocking him to sleep. We're like, we got to go check this out. So we went there.
Yeah, it was incredible, like walking in the door.
Oh, yeah.
And I could only describe it like just the cutting it with a knife. It was just
The
like
presence of God was so thick.
You're just
You could cut it with a knife. It was just amazing.
It was amazing.
So I was watching, and I knew instinctively this was God, but I always like to ask for confirmation. I have lots of stories of that. So I said, God, if this is truly you, and it was just so amazing. There was somebody at the front of the stage that was laughing, and they were falling over, and just crazy things were happening. I don't remember who it was.
Might have been Connie. You never.
Anyways, I said, God, if this is you, you can make a bigger fool out of me than that person. And so I'm just like, okay. And so I went, there was a call forward for people that felt called to evangelism in some form. And I used to do a lot of outreach with theater. So when that call came up, I ran to the front, put my hands out, and boy, the presence of God was just so amazing. And everyone was laughing. And so everyone's laughing. And all of a sudden I hear right beside me, Paul White is standing beside me. And I hear this deep guttural groaning. It was just unbelievable. The sound, it was just so deep. And I remember saying, wow, God, that he's really getting touched by you. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a sec, that's me. One that's doing that. And I'm like, whoa. And then, and then all these things started to happen. And I'm having a conversation. And I really feel this gutturally groaning. And then I say, oh, great. Everyone's laughing. And I'm groaning and crying because I was crying too. And then all of a sudden, someone walked by me and they said they prayed joy over me. Next thing you know, I am laughing like crazy. I don't know what I'm laughing at, but I'm laughing so hard. I'm hitting my leg like I've just heard the craziest joke ever, and I can't stop laughing, and I'm hitting my leg, and I'm like, and just utter laughter. And then somebody else comes by and they pray dance over me. And next thing you know, I'm doing a jig. Now, that means something to me because I was a trained ballet dancer. So everything was like very formal and that. But no, I didn't get to do ballet. I was doing a jig.
She was doing a jig, and I was watching her, and she's missing everyone. There's people all over the floor.
Everyone around me is on the floor. And
like,
I don't even know that because my eyes are closed. And I'm just doing this jig. And Bruce watched me.
Ding, ding,
Somehow,
like a pogo stick.
I just jumped over everybody, and I didn't even know there
She had
were
her eyes
people
closed.
around me on the floor.
That was a miracle right there.
Yeah, that's
So
for sure.
that was my experience. I'm like, wow, this is you, God. So we came back as much as we could
Yeah.
with a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Zeke was he was a big part of it for a long time.
Yeah,
That's great.
That's right.
Well, this stuff, I mean, it went on for 12 years.
Yes.
And
Nightly
nightly
meetings,
meetings.
yeah.
And as Connie said,
Yeah.
we would never get out before, I would say, 2 o'clock in the morning. Often it was 3, and sometimes it was 4. And we had to drag people out, drag them to their cars. And it was just crazy stuff,
Yeah.
but wonderful fruit
Yeah.
all the
For
way through
sure.
it. So it was just a super time.
It really was. Now, can you tell us one of an impactful moment that you remember that maybe happened to you or you experienced or you watched? Can you share with us
Mm.
anything
We've got
like
some
that?
good ones. We've got some good ones for sure.
Yeah.
As I was saying, we really needed to know this really was God. And really, it was so scary for us with all this happening that for the first 2 weeks, it's like every night we'd go home and I'd say, Jeremy, I don't know if I can handle this. Do you want to get off the bus? Because you aren't used to talk about this is the bus we're going on. And one of us would say, I think I'm ready to get off the bus. And the other one said, no, we need to keep going. Like, this is God. Look what happened tonight. Every night there was something.
Wow.
One of them was my mom. My mom was this quiet little intercessor and, very shy and quiet little voice. And a couple things that happened with her. One was one night we tried to have a speaker on, we'd bring in people, tried to, because we'd help to plant some other vineyards. And so we would bring in some speakers or bring in their worship team or bring in ministry team in order to keep going every night of the week. And they wanted to be there to help. So my brother, Jerry, was trying to speak. And as he trying to speak at the front, there was someone at the front. And I mean, it was so packed in there. It was that first building only seated, we figured 350 or 400 maximum, packed to the gills. Mm-hmm. And the youth were actually all over the stage up at the front too, to pack more in before we got the video camera in the kids area as well. And my dad was in there doing all the video work, but my brother Jerry was trying to speak this one night. And I'm near the back and crowded with people. I couldn't see who it was, but there was someone laughing hysterically through his whole message. And he was so distracted. I felt so bad for him. And then someone said, Jerry at the end, actually, he came to me, he said, that was so hard when our mother was up there laughing so hard. Mom can't laugh like that. And I've heard he or something before. I didn't know she was capable of laughing like that. But, wow. I mean, you couldn't have paid her $1 million to do that. But then one night as well, just in that first couple of weeks, here she is praying for someone as one of the ministry team people. She's praying and her head shaking so fast you couldn't even see it. And I'm looking at her, she's praying. I thought, that can't be my mother, and we couldn't pay her $1 million to do it. But this whole new empowering came over her. Fear of man totally broken off of her, which was so amazing to see. My dad started to complain because he'd say, wake up in the middle of the night, the whole bed's shaking as she's up there sleeping away, praying in the middle of the night. Just this powerful spirit-led worship, intercession, giving her specific targets, and she was praying with a whole new power. And that was one of the ones that really convinced me this has to be God.
Wow. Now we had some reporters there too. Jeremy, did you have a story about a reporter?
Yeah, it's one of the most delightful things I think I've ever seen. And we're well into revival and renewal at this point. And the newspapers and broadcasters started to catch wind because there were so many people involved in flying into Toronto. It was the number one new event thing or something, tourist attraction, yes, for Toronto, which was an action. But none of the newscasters ever seemed to give a good report. It was more, we're going to video these stupid people doing all crazy things. Yeah. So this one reporter came in, and his cameraman came with him. And he went to one of the ministry team people and said, look, we'd like to get a shot of you praying for somebody and them falling down. And I overheard this, and I'm thinking, oh, this is so not going to be helpful.
We don't pray for people to fall down.
No, we never pray for people to fall down.
For more of God.
So the ministry team guy said, well, how about we pray for you? And so the guy says, oh, like anything's going to happen. And so the ministry team guy said, well, give it a shot. So he's standing there with his arms crossed. Fine, go ahead, do your thing. Go ahead, do your thing. So the camera's rolling. And the ministry team guy just barely got his hand up, and bam, the guy's down on the ground. He jumps up and he says, you pushed me. And the cameraman says, he wasn't anywhere near you. He didn't push you at all. So the guy says, well, you try that again. So now he's bracing himself, one leg in front of the other, says, go for it. And there's a little crowd of us now. And the camera's rolling, and the ministry team guy again just barely got his hand up to pray. He didn't even start praying, and the guy, bam, he's right down to the ground again, and we are howling with laughter. This is God's idea of a good time. Well, he jumps up and he says to the cameraman, we're out of here. So we run out. We never saw any newscast that night.
I was gonna say.
That's
awesome.
awesome. I love that. I wish somebody else was filming that. That would have
Yeah.
been to watch.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have that.
Yeah.
We've got tons of those kinds of stories though.
Yeah.
So now I know you traveled for many years after that because you were one of the lead people in the Toronto Blessing. Now, how many countries did you go to spreading this amazing?
Did you lose track of that?
And how often did you travel every year?
Well, for about 15 years, we went to about 50 countries.
Yeah.
Australia, we've been to 29 times.
Oh my word,
Wow.
that's a long flight.
That's a long ways
It's
away.
a real long
Very long
flight.
flight, yeah.
It sure is.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got
Wow.
friends, all over the world that
Mm-hmm.
have been just delightful.
Yeah. Well, there's the reason that the name changed actually of our church to Catch the Fire is a couple of things, but one is that people would come and said they caught a fire and took it home. They found out it was very transferable.
Yeah.
So they go home and stuff would break out everywhere they were going.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also then spread the fire, that people were inviting us on the team, different people, to
Yeah.
go to their place, and it would spread. Amazing things would happen.
I'll tell the ones. I'll tell the story.
Okay.
This one pastor from England, very staid. Everything's done properly. You face me. You don't talk to your neighbor when in the midst of my thing. Very. And his leadership wanted him to go to Toronto, and he said, "I'm not going to Toronto for crying out loud. That's the last place I want to go." But they bought the ticket, and so he felt he had to go. So he goes. And he sits through, I don't know, 2 or 3 meetings, just downcast. And this is the
I think he was
stupidest.
actually there for about 10 days and
Yeah.
nothing. He felt
Yeah.
nothing happened. Nothing happened to him personally.
Yeah.
So,
But then, one night he's sitting there and he hears this laughter going on.
yes.
And it's just, going on. It's getting ridiculously loud, and it's really close to him. And it's very much your situation.
Yes.
He discovers he's the one that's laughing. He has both of his hands over his mouth, and he cannot stop laughing.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So he flies back to his home church, and Sunday morning, he walks into the office. His 2 secretaries are there. He didn't say anything. They both fall on the floor.
And laughter on the floor.
So
And the next day, in church.
well, yeah. And so he has the
Yeah.
church meeting, and it breaks out there. And he has 2 meetings a day. Well, there are bodies everywhere as the people come in for the second meeting.
Wow.
It's just an insane thing. He was so impressed. He actually flew back to Toronto to get more.
Yep.
And it's so true. That's exactly what happens. People catch the fire and they bring it home.
Yep.
Yeah,
And-
there's a bit of breakout here in Kelowna. There was a lot of that.
There was, and
transfer
also
breakout, yeah.
a big thing out west is Bill Johnson in Bethel, and I believe he was
Yes.
one of the ones that went and brought it home. I mean, it's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
just so amazing.
World. That's for sure. Yes. We're amazed at the ripple effect everywhere.
Mhm.
And
I know.
something Jeremy and I have often said, and I said even just this morning again, that really something that amazes me over and over. When we went to travel, we often felt like we're just simple people, ordinary people.
Mhm.
But we happened to be in that right spot at the right time when God was pouring out, and he imparted something to us so that we would go. And it seemed like when we went to different countries, we just gave a simple little seed, planted a little seed,
Yeah.
and it explode. And we either amazing things happened. Sometimes revivals took place in those places, that followed after we left, or else sometimes we come back 2 years later and found that little seed we planted had grown into this mighty tree.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it just blows your mind. It's just so that's one of the messages I think we have is just, God just wants simple little old me and simple little old
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
to plant little seeds, and look what he can do with it. He just wants us to be available and say yes to him.
Mhm.
And he astounds us with what he wants to do, and why he wants to partner with us, I don't know, but he loves it. I think it brings him such joy
Yeah.
because of the joy it brings us in partnering with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very important. Very much. Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Well, let's fast forward to today. So right now, you are pastoring Catch the Fire Barrie. And
Yeah.
how long have you been doing that for?
This is our 7th year.
Wow.
So
And so you probably don't travel as much now, although you probably still do.
Not
a
as
lot,
much.
Not a lot.
Not as much.
But we're finding we're just so enjoying being
Mhm.
home and doing life with people.
Yeah.
As I say, we got friends, in so many places in the world, but we only see them, a week, a year,
Yeah.
and then come home. But here we're just appreciating close friendships, deep friendships, and
Yeah.
really enjoying the pastoring part of it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, awesome. Well, they're lucky to have you. We sure enjoyed your
Yeah.
home group years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You were our first home group as a couple too. I
Yes,
remember.
yes.
Wow.
Remember
Yes.
bringing Zeke as well, sitting him underneath a chair, making him
Yes.
fall asleep.
You got soaked a lot with
Yeah.
this move of God, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, and so now here we are, Bruce and I, living out west in Kelowna. We just moved here. We've only
Yeah.
been here for 2 months.
And open invitation for you guys to come visit anytime.
Anytime.
of course.
Hey,
Wow.
thank you.
Yes, please.
Anyway, so we are in the midst of planting Catch the Fire Okanagan here out in out in Kelowna.
North Kelowna, but we, God just said to us, we were going to ask him, should we do it as Catch the Fire Kelowna? Because there are actually no Catch the Fire churches past. Am I getting it right? Is it Saskatoon? Or is there one in, I don't know. It's kind of,
I think you're right. I think any that are out there are
Mm.
associations with partners
Yeah.
with
Catch Fire
Catch Fire.
partners.
right,
Yeah.
partners. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's kind of a thing that we just felt like God said, we're going to be Catch the Fire Okanagan, and they approved us to do that. So we're beginning very similar to what you're talking about too, about the relationship aspect is very important to us. And that's the culture I think that you guys both participated in and actually bred in us as over the years too. What is that saying that John Arnott used to say, come as you are and you'll be loved? Was that one he said?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
said that all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it really was like
It
being
was
in
like that.
a
It's like a-
living room, the way John led.
Yes.
And
Very
it
much.
was very much like that. So we're kind of taking up that same
Same thing. So-
things.
Yeah.
Just
and-
hang out, get
Well,
to know people and see what God's going to do.
So I think we're going to officially, the week after the long weekend in September, kind of start meeting just in our house and then branch out from there and just get to know people in the same way, getting into relationships with people and see where it goes from there. So
That's great.
Actually, that saying that you said from John is only the first half.
oh
Come as
really?
you are and you'll be loved, but we love you too much to leave you that way.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
That's a
That
good
needs
one.
to be a good quote out there.
Yes.
Because
Used
we
to
do
say-
believe in healing of the heart.
Yeah.
Yes. And that I
Oh,
totally,
absolutely.
that's one of the things I love about Catch the Fire.
Yeah.
And way back then, like you couldn't even be in leadership unless you went through the Sanford stuff way back, which we went,
That's right.
I went through that. And we even went to school and became Sanford, what do you call it?
I don't know. Is there a term for it?
Our ministry counselors, I guess.
Yes.
There you go. Something like
Yes,
that.
or where we can actually then pass it on, which we did. We were able to counsel lots of people while we lived in Toronto. And that's one of the things that's what I've always loved about what John Arnott started. And also it's in
Continues
Catch the
today.
Fire.
Yep.
Like even as pastors, you need to go in and get your 1 week of healing every year, whether
Or
you think
every-
you need it or not. Or is it every other year?
It's every other year.
Yeah.
Every other year, but you got to go. It's part of who we are, right?
It's a good idea.
It's
yeah.
a good checkup. Yes.
Yeah, pastors are people too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. And so
Very
That's
much our
what we
core
love.
values. That's for
yes,
sure.
core values.
We
I
have
love
a Catch the Fire, the fire values,
Mhm.
the Father heart of God, because again, it's the Father's blessing, not just the Toronto blessing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's the revelation of the Father's heart and his love for us. And then I is intimacy with God, including hearing God's voice.
Yeah.
And then R for restoration of the heart, which is all the healing of our heart issues and things. And then E for equipping and empowering by
And
the
we-
Holy Spirit.
And we add one more, and that's another F at the end. That's for fun.
Yeah, we have to make sure we have fun in the process.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Those, that's perfect.
Fun is very important. It's very important to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those fire values are still very much important
Mhm.
for all the Catch the Fire churches. And we love that. And that's one thing we love about being a Catch the Fire pastor in a church, staying these 7 years in Catch the Fire Barrie, because we see that transformation over time. And it's you can't have greater joy than seeing people totally transformed
Yeah.
in the presence of God
Yep.
by his love, by just getting that deep relationship with him and intimacy with him. And it's
Yeah.
just been wonderful to watch that. So yeah, we're still having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
being part of it.
Absolutely.
It's great to see, like we've been long enough, 7 years now. We're beginning to see now sons and daughters becoming fathers and mothers.
Mhm.
And that's
That's
stepping into
awesome.
leadership,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very much at our hearts too, is seeing people step into their calling, into the fullness of what they're called to do,
Yeah.
and grow in that. And it's yeah, that's very satisfying. I believe that's kind of
It is.
Exciting.
why
It's
we're doing
exciting.
this. It's not
Yeah.
so that we get to preach every week, because that's not on my list anyway. But
Then, of course, our banner now that we have as Catch the Fire is encounter God's transforming presence.
yes,
Yes,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, we love doing deep worship. We love stepping into that place of intimacy and
Mhm.
seeing what God does, and that's
Yeah, so we've seen how you do that, and I love it.
yeah.
Aw, thank you. Well,
So-
it's been so wonderful to interview you today.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming here and
Coming here online,
online, but
and in person.
we would like to
Yeah.
see you in person in the future.
That's great.
We shall do that.
Okay,
Awesome.
Blessings to you both.
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us share. All
Thank
right.